Welcome to the Total Soccer Show Weekend Review. Arsenal remain top of the league after the 7th game in a row they've refused to concede. And Man City moved up to second place after bumping Bournemouth down in the title race. And Liverpool finally ended their winless run when they scored 2 and Villa scored none. And the feelings of Tottenham fans were fully revealed when Chelsea beat them and they were booed off the field. But the Premier League team who deserves the most acclaim is West Ham, who actually won a game. Elsewhere, Milan faced Roma and were victorious. Spalletti's reign at Juventus started off pretty glorious. Celtic won the Old Firm and they were basking in Martin O'Neill's glow. And Bayern Munich won for the millionth game in a row. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today in a dynamic duo on the Weekend Review, it's Mr. Graham Ruthven. Hello, Graham. How are you?
I'm very well. Ryan Bailey, how are you? Happy birthday to you. You thought I'd forgotten, didn't you?
Aww.
You thought I'd forgotten that. The truth is I had forgotten until I saw it on LinkedIn this morning. So you were hoisted by your own corporate petard there.
Isn't it a bit sad that the way I find out about most people's birthdays these days is also LinkedIn? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even sadder than that, maybe this is just me, but I've got from back in the day like old bosses' birthdays in my Apple calendar that must have, it's just been in there for like a decade. So someone I've not even spoken to for years, but I've got their birthday, I've got their address and like their social security number and everything. And
their fears, everything. Yeah. Brilliant. Wow. What,
you
yay for Apple
nice?
calendars.
You doing anything nice?
I am, thank you very much. Thank you, Graham, for your sentiment as well. We are recording as a dynamic duo because we're a couple of men down today, but we have plenty of weekend to go through. But later today, I am going to the city of Atlanta in Georgia, Graham, to see an 83-year-old man from Liverpool sing songs for 3 hours. How about that?
Oh, the best living Beatle, Ringo Starr, of course. I'm surprised that he's able to carry off a stadium tour in 2025, but you know, Octopus's Garden, that's a banger.
No.
That's what you're talking about, right?
No, I'm going to see the best guy in Wings. Do you remember that band, Wings?
Yeah.
It's the best guy from that. Yeah.
This is the band my dad likes.
Yeah. All of our dads like Paul McCartney. I'm looking forward to going to see that later on today. Thank you very much, Graham. But plenty of weekend to get into, as I say. Before we get to all the action there, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support us. And our wants to go and see 83-year-old men from Liverpool go and play songs. You can get bonus episodes there, including Weekend Review Extra. Plenty going on in there this weekend, Graham, isn't there? Lots to talk about.
Indeed, including an Old Firm derby. Only the second of the season. We're just into November. And we're already moving through them quickly.
Yeah,
but this was an interesting one. Unlike the one earlier in the season, which I think I called on the weekend or the worst game I'd ever seen. Yeah. This was not quite at that level. So
this was not, and plenty of narrative around it to get into as well, Graham. That'll be fun.
A lovely tracksuit from Martin O'Neill as well. I don't know if you saw that.
He's not 83. I believe he's 73, but he carries himself with at least 63-year-old energy, I'd say. Especially
in that Adidas Originals tracksuit, which I get not to labour the point, but if listeners haven't seen it, go and seek it out on the internet. He was asked about it after the game because it's not like a classic sort of like footballer's tracksuit, and basically he said that in the footballer's tracksuit, do you know what I mean by this, Ryan? He was saying that like around his legs they were tight, they were like nylon stockings. He said he looked like Robin Hood, so he asked what else they had, and they handed him like this sort of streetwear Originals tracksuit. It was great. He pulled it off.
Yeah. That's kind of the soccer tracksuit bottom is like they're deliberately tight around the calves these days, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, I presume so you can play football in them, right? So you don't have
it would help.
Tracksuit waving around. But Martin O'Neill, he wasn't for having it.
But what if you've got like Grealish calves? How do you get them on?
You just cut them like they do with the socks, big holes in them.
Thus defeating the purpose of long pants in the first place. Wonderful stuff. Anyway, more on that on Weekend Review Extra. You'll also get our bonus video content on our bonus feed and access to our Discord server. All of the cool kids are hanging out in our Discord server. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. A please and a thank you. All right, Graham, what say you and me have a chat about the Premier League from this weekend? Should we start off in North London, where Spurs had a 1-0 defeat at the hands of Chelsea? João Pedro with the goal in the 34th minute in this one. Maybe not the best defending in that moment. And Spurs booed off the field, as I mentioned in the intro, at the end. So Frank Ball is also not impressing at this time. So can we get a vibe check, Graham, on Frank Ball and what the fans are thinking of it at this point?
I'm not sure I can give you a vibe check. It's very confusing around Spurs at the moment, where in terms of the results, they've had a decent start to the season, particularly considering this is a team that finished 17th in the league last year. But it feels like Spurs are once again in this position, where, or at least their fans are, a lot of their fans are, where it feels like they don't really know what they want. And look, I will say, Frank Ball so far this season, the results have been better than the performances for the most part. There have been a couple games. I remember the Bodo Glimt game away in the Champions League where I have no idea how they managed to get a point from that game. Equally, also in the Champions League away to Monaco, 2 weeks ago, Vicario had the game of his life. So I can understand why there is some frustration building. And I can particularly understand why that frustration bubbled to the surface in this game. Because this scoreline didn't reflect how this match went. Not because Chelsea didn't deserve to win, but because Chelsea were utterly dominant in this game. And I'm looking at some of the numbers here. 0.10 in XG for the full match for Spurs. It's just shocking. They had 3 shots in total, not a single big chance. And some of this was down to what Chelsea were doing in this game, right? I don't want to take away from their performance. They smothered Spurs, particularly in the centre of the pitch, where Spurs just couldn't get any rhythm going at any point in the game. And we saw for the winning goal that you referenced there, Ryan, the João Pedro goal, just how bogged down Spurs were. I count 3, possibly even 4 mistakes that lead to that goal, and then obviously Pedro finishes. But the reason this was so concerning for Spurs was this has been a trend for them. I mentioned it on Friday's episode. They don't create from open play, and this was the starkest illustration of that so far. If anything, the problem is getting worse. So I can understand that frustration, but it is... It's impossible not to feel like Spurs are sort of entering the spiral all over again, and I just don't want them for that, Ryan. I'm not sure, even me as a neutral, I'm not even sure I can face that spiral again so soon after the last one.
The twists aren't going to be quite as hard, surely, this time around. Surely not.
For Spurs' sake, I hope not. Otherwise, that means relegation.
Obviously, they had the rhythm shaken up early on with the Lucas Bergvall incident,
yeah.
Graham, and with the concussion protocol being enacted, was it within the first 5 or 6 minutes of this game, after getting sort of hit pretty hard with the ball. I can't remember the last time a player looked that unhappy about leaving the field as well. He did. Obviously, most athletes don't want to leave the field when they think they can play on, but the right thing was done there. But it was quite interesting seeing how voracious his appeal to stay on the field was at that point.
He it disrupted Spurs having him come off the pitch so early, because he might have made a difference in terms of that ball progression that I was mentioning. And I think it's Xavi Simons who comes off the bench, who has huge potential, has not been integrated as quickly or as well as I think a lot of Spurs fans would have liked. Does he get subbed off again as the sub in this game? I'm pretty sure that happens later on. It just feels like the balance of Spurs it's not quite there at the moment. I don't know how much to read into the Van de Ven Spence thing at the end of the game. I don't know if you saw that as well, but basically at the end of the match, Thomas Frank comes onto the pitch. His whole thing is, no matter the result, the performance, you go and clap your fans. And Van de Ven, who was the Spurs captain for this game, and Spence just kind of brush past Frank, and he turns around and stares at them. I don't know how much, I don't know how. I've never been in that dressing room environment at an elite level sport. I don't know if that is a big deal, or if they just can brush it off and say, well, it's a heat of the moment thing after a poor game. But wasn't a great look, and just adds to the sense that maybe things are starting to turn for Spurs after a good start to the season. I noticed there was an Athletic article on how Frank is maybe going down the same route as Nuno as Spurs manager, where the sort of attacking, creative football just isn't there to add to the defensive base, and Spurs fans expect those things. But for Chelsea, I thought their performance was good here. They were in control on both sides of the ball, especially against the ball, where Spurs, as we've kind of mentioned, created very little. And I thought Caicedo in particular was brilliant for Chelsea. I won't go on about him because I feel like I've done that a few times in 2025, but he can do everything, can't he? Against the ball, with the ball. I think he's probably the best two-way central midfielder in the Premier League at the moment. I think it's him or Declan Rice. The two of them are brilliant, and Chelsea deserved this win. I think the frustration for them will be that they weren't able to score more goals, and that has been for them a pattern this season, where it feels like, and this is kind of anecdotal because I went and looked at the XG, and this doesn't quite bear out in the XG table, where they're actually overperforming slightly. But having watched them a bunch this season, Chelsea, it feels like they huff and puff a lot in a number of games, and it takes them a lot of chances to score a goal, or not so much a lot of chances, a lot of pressure in the opposition half, and I felt that again in this game. But they were still a lot better than Spurs in this match.
They were, yeah. I'm trying to think. There wasn't any sort of weak links, I thought, in Chelsea necessarily in this game. And as you mentioned, Moises Caicedo really seems this season to me to be justifying that exorbitant price tag that he had, which I think we mentioned before on this feed. But I thought Enzo had a good game. He was a bit spiky at times as well. I think he nearly saw red at one point as well. But the spine of this team looked very impressive. I thought this Chelsea team has evolved. It's come together in a way that I didn't necessarily expect all those component parts to do. So bravo to them.
Yeah, I think they're maybe still lacking. Like, you look at the wide players, maybe more productivity from Neto and Garnacho, who started this game. They've got Gittins. I mean, they've got so many options, Chelsea. Like, Estevao has been very good this season. Gittins comes off the bench. There's surely a number of players that I'm forgetting who are on their books. It just feels like they need one of those players to really take a grip and be like the man for them in most matches. That's just what they're lacking at the moment. And I like João Pedro. He's maybe not like an out-and-out number 9, even though he scores the winner in this game. So I think that defence, despite the injuries that they've had, Fofana coming back into that back line, I think makes a bit of a difference. I have questions over Robert Sanchez, but the midfield and the defence feels pretty settled. That forward line is still where I feel like there's a gulf between them and like City and Arsenal and Liverpool. That's where there's like the progression. The next progression has to be made.
But Cole Palmer back in December, so maybe a little bit of that golf is recovered.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Should mention Cole Palmer still out injured. I can't believe on Friday's episode I didn't mention him as one of the injured players, because he is the injured player that Chelsea are missing the most. So you're absolutely right. Once he comes back, maybe that's where he makes a big difference. This
game was lacking the main attacking midfielder in both teams, arguably. Obviously, with James Maddison out on the other side too. So
and Kulusevski, I think Spurs are missing. I mean, one of those two players, Maddison's going to miss I think like the full season, isn't he? Yeah. He's not going to be back for a while. Kulusevski, I'm sure I read in the summer he was like weeks away and he's still not back. And I think people have forgotten how good he was at points for Postecoglou for Spurs. So even having him back, I think, would make a bit of a difference. But yeah, Spurs are. It feels like they've got the pieces, Spurs. Like, I go through individually the players that they have, even the players that start this game, like Bentancur, I think, is a good player. Paulino is a good player. Spence has been a good player, maybe not in the best of form right now. Mohamed Kudus, like, individually, these are all good players, but just the way they're fitting together right now, it's not fully working.
Indeed. All right, well, Spurs fans, at least you've got a nice stadium and a cheese room and stuff, so, it's not all bad. But Chelsea getting 3 points in this one. Man City leapfrogging over Bournemouth, Graham, with a 3-1 win at the Etihad. It was the Erling Haaland show once again. He had a brace in this one. Haaland, I liked his quote after the game. I think there were a few fantasy football managers who were unhappy that I was subbed off in this one. I imagine there were. So Nico O'Reilly getting the other Man City goal. And Bournemouth's goal from Tyler Adams, his first ever goal in English soccer. How about that? Good stuff.
Yeah, not so good stuff that he ends this game with a bit of an injury, comes off before the end. But yeah, he was, even looking beyond the goal, I mean, the goal is like an opportunistic finish inside the box from across into the area. So I give him credit for that. But just his overall performance, particularly in the first half, I mean, Bournemouth sort of faded as the game went on. And I thought City did a really good job of sort of working out the Bournemouth press, but they deserve to win this game, City. But Tyler Adams individually was really strong, and there's a moment where Bournemouth have a goal disallowed to make it 1-0. They would have been ahead. It's Krupe, and he's just drifted offside, and he doesn't need to be. It's the ball across. Is it from Semenyo? I can't quite remember. It might have been from David Brooks. And he's offside when he really doesn't need to be. And that move is started by Tyler Adams winning the ball in very Tyler Adams fashion in the middle of the pitch. So he had his moments in this game, and City certainly had their moments in this game. I said on the weekender that I thought this game was going to be interesting because of the tactical cat and mouse, and that's what we got in this game. Because in a sense, City played into Bournemouth's hands, but they did that deliberately. So normally Bournemouth are so strong in the middle of the pitch, but what City did in this game was they flooded the middle. So you had Cherki, Foden. Cherki, by the way, I thought was excellent in this game. Only his second Premier League start, but he was brilliant. So you had Cherki, Foden and Doku all wanting to come inside, and that was designed to tempt the defenders into the middle to help the Bournemouth defenders, I should say. They wanted them to come into the middle to help with the overload, and that would then open up space for City to move quickly into the attack at speed. And we saw that for the first City goal when Senesi steps into Cherki. You know, the one where Cherki plays the little header and Haaland's all of a sudden in behind. that space is there because Senesi notices there's an overload in the middle, there's a free man, I'm going to have to step up, and then City move the ball very quickly, and all of a sudden he's out of position and the space is in behind for Haaland to do the whole goal bot thing that he does and celebrated. As a robot in this game as well, the Peter Crouch, which I loved. But it's not often that you see Bournemouth pulled apart like that, and City did it numerous times in this game. And this is a bit of a trend for City, actually, because they did it to Bournemouth, I think, in the FA Cup last season as well, where they made them look fairly ordinary. But yeah, I thought City were quite fundamentally the better team in this game.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But Krupi, as you mentioned, Graham, getting the ball in the net after less than a minute, 46 seconds in this one. How long do they hang on to Krupi for? It seems like another player who's going to graduate, shall we say.
Honestly, Brighton went through this spell for a while, like a couple seasons ago, where it felt like every month there was a player you'd never heard of who all of a sudden just came to the fore and was brilliant. Bournemouth are doing a similar thing just now, and Krupi is the latest example, the latest guy off the conveyor belt. I think signed him from Lorient. And I haven't really been aware of him until like the last month or so, and all of a sudden he's got like 3 goals in 4 games. And he had his there was a rawness in his performance in this game. He has that offside goal where he really should be holding the line. There's no excuse for him not to be. And then there was another opportunity inside the box where he kind of like slashed his finish past the near post when just a little bit more composure. Either you force a save from Donnarumma or actually find a teammate at the back post. But you can see with the positions that he takes up, he's got real potential, and it's a position that Bournemouth, as much as that attacking front line is impressive, if they can find a number 9 to elevate them to the next level, it's an area that they can probably upgrade on. As good as even Evanilson is, like Krupi looks like he could be the real deal.
Yeah, he's holding all the cards, which is appropriate for Krupi.
There we go. I got that one.
Yeah, nearly there. Nearly there with that one. On the other side of the field, Graham, Erling Haaland with 13 goals in 9
Ridiculous.
games. No other Man City player has more than a single goal. Man City's second highest goal scorer is Maxime Esteve of Burnley with 2 own goals. So there you go.
I hadn't even clocked that. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think I wrote an article a few weeks ago on like how Man City can't rely on Erling Haaland to score all their goals. Actually, they probably can. It's probably going to be.
Well, they are.
He's probably got more goals. He's surely got more goals than a good number of teams in the Premier League this season. If he's got 13.
It's fine until it's not, right? That's it.
Until he gets injured, which of course hasn't happened in the past. It's the diet, Ryan. I don't know if you've seen his diet. There's been a lot of online chatter about how he drinks raw milk, apparently.
Yeah. Giant slabs of steak. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it'll be great fun until he gets floored by E. coli with the first elite level football injured by E. coli. But it's working for him now.
Yeah, pasteurisation needs to come his way at some point. Perhaps, Graham. Actually, his YouTube channel has become a thing I've become slightly obsessed with. I don't know if you saw. Did you see over the weekend his Halloween video? So it's hilarious. He dresses up as the Heath Ledger style Joker and walks around the streets of Manchester, sort of going to a gas station and that kind of thing. And every time someone recognises him, he goes, "How did you know it was me?" It's like, you're 6'5" and you're Erling Haaland. I think we know it's you.
You're a real life Viking. Doesn't matter if you're dressed as Heath Ledger. You still know it's you.
Yeah, I don't think he was fooling anyone quite as much as he thought with that one, but he does seem like he's got a good little personality on his shoulders as well. Very good. Man City 3, Bournemouth 1 then. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go around the rest of the Premier League. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the weekend review. It's the dynamic duo of Ryan and Graham. Back with you at Anfield. Liverpool 2, Aston Villa 0. The streak of 4 league defeats in a row, Graham, is over for Liverpool. Mo Salah with the opener, courtesy of Emi Martinez making a mistake. Not my dog, Emi Martinez, the goalkeeper, Emi Martinez, giving a gift to Mo Salah in this one. His 250th goal for Liverpool. Ryan Gravenberch getting the second goal as well. But, I mean, the scoreline maybe doesn't represent all that happened in this game. Villa hitting the woodwork a couple of times in this game as well.
Yeah, I mean, for Liverpool, obviously, it was a result that they clearly needed. It wasn't a perfect performance, and as you kind of referenced there, Ryan, Villa actually made a pretty good start. They hit the woodwork twice in the first 20 minutes. Morgan Rogers in particular was a real danger when he... that's another pirate name. That's a trend, isn't it, in the Premier League? What's going on? But he was a real danger when he got forward on the dribble in attacking transition. We've seen that weakness from Liverpool in pretty much every game they've played this season, and... if he'd been a little bit sharper in his execution, maybe Villa take the lead in this game. But I thought overall this was better from Liverpool. I thought their press was better than I've seen it for a while. it was confusing that Villa decided to play out from the back so often, because Liverpool have been so vulnerable against teams that play direct this season. But Villa continually got bogged down trying to play short passes around the defensive third. It cost them for the first goal, where there's that breakdown between Martinez and Pau Torres. There was also another chance for Soboslai, which comes from a Villa mistake. And actually, and they mentioned this on Match of the Day, Villa played the fewest long balls in this game of any team Liverpool have played this season. So yes, the Liverpool press was better, but Villa allowed it to be better by giving them a target to close down. And I just don't understand why. I mean, it had to be by design, surely, because if you're facing a press, surely the easiest thing to do, if you're struggling against the press, the easiest thing to do is to go direct. So that was something Emery wanted them to do, and I don't really understand why you would want to do that, having watched Liverpool recently and how they've struggled against teams that play direct. But yeah, for Liverpool, it felt like, I don't know whether this was by design or not, but this lineup and this team felt like Liverpool going back to basics. Back to what they know from last season. And obviously, Slot's hand is forced a little bit at the moment due to a few injuries. But it was Robertson at left back, Conor Bradley at right back, McAllister and Gravenberch as a double pivot, Soboslai slightly more advanced, Gakpo left, Salah right, and then the only new signing in that starting lineup was Ekitike as the centre forward. It just felt a lot more more stable in this game, a bit more like what we saw last season. Salah, by the way, had his most touches of any game this season. He was more involved. He didn't just score; he was actually doing stuff in the game, which we haven't seen for a while. The midfield wasn't quite as exposed after that opening 20 minutes. I thought the fullbacks were more solid. I mentioned it last week. I don't understand why Slot hasn't turned to Andy Robertson sooner. He isn't perfect, and he is kind of fading physically, but Milos Kerkez is just so raw at the moment. So I'd be sticking with this for a while if I was Slot. This feels like a team that might allow them to build some momentum.
Yeah, Ekitike a bit disappointing in this game, Graham. 15 touches, no shots in this one either. Seemed a bit like he had an off day, basically.
Yeah, we'll let him off. He's been so good so far this season. But it just feels like, the only change you're making if you're Liverpool is Ekitike coming into that lineup. So yeah, just in terms of the fundamentals, it felt much more like the team that strolled to the title last season. So yeah. I expect we'll see this team again, and some of that is down to injuries. Like Isak's got an injury, but other players like Kerkez and Florian Wirtz, coming off the bench in this game, that I still think he'll come good. He has a generational talent, but for the time being, Liverpool, that's his role for Liverpool, is coming off the bench, and that maybe just shows how strong they are, Liverpool, in terms of the squad, that they can have an £150 million player as an impact sub. But for now, that's what it is.
Must be nice. Nice, yeah. I think I haven't got the stats to hand, but I think Villa's record at Anfield is dreadful as well, so maybe we should have seen this coming as well. Nottingham Forest 2, Man United 2. How about this one? We had a fun ending in this one, Graham, didn't we? I had Casemiro putting Man United ahead here. Morgan Gibbs-White and Nicolas Savona scoring within 2 minutes for Forest, and then Amad Diallo getting the United the point with a lovely late volley. Not the best volley of the weekend. We'll get there in part 3 of this show. Spoiler alert. But 81st minute, and almost getting the winner sort of in injury time as well, did Man United. A goal line clearance here. Haircut guy, though, his wait for the scissors sadly continues. 5 games in a row has not happened yet for Man United. Yeah.
Poor guy, back to square one. It is honestly going to take him forever for Manchester United to win 5 games, even though they are tentatively moving forward now. And I thought this was a great game for the neutral. I watched it in full on Saturday evening. Ryan, you know how Sky will sometimes replay a whole game. This was the 3 o'clock game, so it wasn't live for me, but I watched it in full that evening. And it was a real blood and thunder match. And Forest looked much more like the team that we knew them to be last season. They were dangerous on the break. Gibbs-White in particular was a real threat. His header to make it 1-1 was lovely. And for about 10 minutes at the start of the second half, Forest were doing a good job of getting bodies into the box, causing a bit of chaos, which is how they scored the second goal to make it 2-1. I thought the Manchester United response was pretty good, though. The Amad goal, as you mentioned there, Ryan, to make it 2-2 was an absolute stunner. The technique on that volley is ridiculous. But just generally, and look, we'll never know, this might be proper football man stuff, but I just don't think Manchester United would have fought back like they did in this game, even a few weeks ago. When it goes 2-1 and the Forest have real momentum and they're getting players forward quickly and the City ground is up and behind them, I just feel like mentally Manchester United would have crumbled earlier in the season. And so it does feel like there's been a bit of a change there. The next thing that Manchester United need to work on is how to create more and win games when they have more of the ball than the opposition. So their points per game ratio, I saw this bouncing around on social media after the game, their points per game ratio in games where they have more than 50% possession is roughly half what it is when they have less than 50% possession. So that basically means that they are more comfortable when they can play like in quick transition on the break. They can do as they did against Liverpool at Anfield. That's where Manchester United are most effective. That's where they have to get better. And that is a thing until they do that. That's something that's going to put a limit on how high in the table they can go. Even if things look to have turned a bit of a corner, they need to become, just by the nature of the talent that they have, they need to become a better like ball dominant team. I don't think you can like challenge for a title playing on the break. So that has to be the next thing for Manchester United. But yeah, I know that for that poor kid with hair, this will feel like a defeat. But I think there's still enough in this for Manchester United to take some positives.
Yeah, I like the quote from Sen Lemon. I'm not 100% sure how we're pronouncing that at this point.
That sounds legit. Sounds better than what I'm saying. Senny Lamans.
Big Senny in goal has said after this game, I'm not Peter Schmeichel in disguise, referencing the chant that Man United fans are aiming at him. I'm just Big Senny Lemon trying to help the team, which is a lovely, humble thing for him to say, actually. Maybe it's also trying to get that, that albatross off his shoulders maybe a little bit with that comment.
I like him. I don't know. You know how there's just some players, I don't know whether it's because we've watched Andre Onana and Bayindir for so long, but there's just some players you just like the cut of their jib. Lamans just looks like a good goalkeeper. He sounds like a good, I don't know, I just think he's made a bit of a difference.
Agreed. Totally agreed there. And has Sean Dyche, Graham, made a difference at Nottingham Forest? Are we seeing Dyche ball evolve with this team yet? Early days, of course.
Well, I mean, Dyche ball fundamentally is not too far removed from Nuno ball, so he should have a bit of a head start there, and I think that is a factor in how Forest, they do look like more like the team of last season under Dyche. So I think that's it's a decent fit for Forest, but it does raise questions about what their sort of like long-term targets are, because the idea with Postecoglou was
long-term targets. Forest, that's funny. Good one.
You're right, actually. That was silly of me to even consider that's entered their heads. But like the thing with Big Ange was, he's going to turn it into a more modern team, and that'll help us in the future. And that they've ditched that after 39 days and gone back to like an even cruder version of Nuno Ball and Sean Dyche with added worms and everything. It's great fun.
The most back to basics you can do is back to Dyche in this scenario. But wonderful stuff. Palace, back to winning ways. A 2-0 win over Brentford. Jean-Philippe Mateta with his fourth goal in 2 home games for Palace in this one. Nathan Collins with an unfortunate own goal to double Palace's advantage in that one. And Arsenal with a 2-0 win at Burnley, their 5th consecutive Premier League win, their 9th consecutive win in all competitions, their 7th clean sheet in a row. No shots on target conceived in this game once again. And Set Piece FC on show again. Arsenal, the first side in Premier League history to score 8 goals from corners in the first 10 games of a Premier League campaign, which is a wonderful stat to compile. Bravo to everyone who compiled that one. Each of their first 5 away goals in the Premier League this season have come from corners. This was comfortable, Graham, for Arsenal.
Yeah, and maybe it was always likely to be against Burnley, but I will say Burnley have been pretty decent at home this season, and obviously going back to last season, they had that incredible record in the Champo as well. But Arsenal coasted through the majority of this game. Those those Declan Rice corner kicks, like for all the chat of set piece theatre and choreography and Nicolas Jover and all the smart things that Arsenal are doing, I think the biggest part is just the quality of the deliveries that Declan Rice puts in. They get so much whip and dip on them, it's almost impossible to stop them. It only requires like someone to nod it in or just like get a touch on it. Right now I think he's the best corner taker in the world, which at West Ham earlier in his career I did not see that coming, and he's just become like generally a brilliant player. Like he was so commanding in this game. He was top for touches, crosses, tackles, carry distance, passes into the box. Like he was basically a one-man team, which is fairly impressive.
Very good indeed. Whip and dip. That's a nickname waiting to happen there. I like that very much indeed. Graham, I saw some chatter on social after this game that some purporting that this Arsenal side are as good as any of the recent Man City title-winning sides of the last few years. Would you go along with that, do you think? Obviously, it is theirs at the moment to lose, arguably, right?
Oh, for sure right now. It seems like they're the most complete team. They've got the fewest weaknesses. I still have a few questions about just like their attacking verve in the biggest matches, there has been a bit of a pattern there. But yeah, for sure they're the favourites right now. Put me a bit on the spot with like comparing them to other teams. I think the Man City treble team, I remember discussing that team on this show, and it just felt like they had completed soccer with like some of the not just like the Haaland goal scoring, but some of the tactical things they were doing with. Do you remember like John Stones pushing into central midfield? And
yeah.
It just felt like they didn't need more than 2 defenders, and they had like an extra attacking player on the field as a result. So I would still take that team over this one. But yeah, for sure, it feels like Arsenal have been building to this point where now Arteta and Arsenal have built out that squad. They've got different looks this season, like the way that Arteta's using Calafiori and Jurrien Timber right now. I think it's so effective and so clever. We're basically, and look, we've seen Arteta doing stuff with fullbacks before, but it's like he's cranked the dial up to 11 this season with Calafiori in particular, making runs in this game like a centre forward. He comes inside and like to occupy the central defenders, and then is like making runs in behind. Timber doesn't quite do it to the same extent, but he also likes to get into the half spaces and attacking areas and get on the turn. And I think it's amazing to watch, and I think it's been key to how Arsenal have added like a different dimension to their attack this season, because they were becoming a little bit easy to play against, and that has just given them something extra. So yeah, for now I think I wouldn't go as far as saying I'd put like my mortgage on Arsenal. I'm not quite that bold, especially not with telling Lucy. But I think they're quite clearly the favourites.
Yeah, don't put your mortgage on any team is probably sound advice from the Total Soccer Show, I would say. But don't mess this up, Arsenal. You're in the catbird seat, as we say around here. Fulham 3, Wolves 0. Wolves failing to win their first 10 Premier League games for the second season running. They are 8 points from safety. And Vitor Pereira given his marching orders on Sunday, taking just 2 points from those first 10 matches. 45 days, Graham, after signing a 3-year contract. Yeah.
Which is, obviously galaxy-brained to hear it that when it's framed that way, but I did also read in the reporting that new contract included a clause that allowed Wolves to sack him without paying him anything. So it feels like it was a preemptive sack boy contract, I guess, where they were preparing to sack him by giving him a new contract.
Why would you sign that? Is it like one of those Instagram things where they get a famous person to sign a piece of paper and then they pull it out and it's a full contract? Ha-ha!
I think so. They were covering the small print and they were like leaning on the desk covering the small print of how Vitor Pereira doesn't get a payout. But yeah, things dramatically changed for him. Do you remember last season when he was down the pub having pints at Wetherspoons with the Wolves fans when they were on that incredible winning run? And my pre-season preview of Wolves has aged like Haaland's raw milk, because I said that I thought they were going to be okay, and one of the reasons was I had faith in Vitor Pereira, who has now been sacked and we're barely into November. So I think Wolves have bigger issues than the manager, frankly. I look at that squad now and kind of worry about just like the general talent that they have, particularly with some of the promoted teams looking more competitive this season. But the chat is Gary O'Neill going back to Wolves, running that one back. We'll see how that goes.
Cool, great. I think the person who had the worst weekend, surely Vitor Pereira's agent, if he's got a 3-year contract and he's walked away without a payout in that one. But bravo to Wolves if you've pulled that one off. A couple more games to talk about. Brighton 3, Leeds 0. Brighton into 9th with that win. Danny Welbeck scoring for the third successive league game, and Diego Gomez getting a brace in this one as well. Leeds with their 4th defeat in 5 away fixtures. And Graham, West Ham 3. Newcastle 1, West Ham 3, Newcastle 1. I didn't see that one coming. The first win under Nuno, desperately needed as it was. I suppose it did help that Newcastle were surprisingly not good. And my boy Lucas Paqueta getting a nice goal in this one as well. Bravo to West Ham.
Yep. Yeah, West Ham were a lot better. Their midfield in particular, they had a young midfielder who I'm sure had made a few appearances for West Ham before, but I think this was his first Premier League start. He's called Freddie Potts. I was very impressed with him, and just love that he sounds like a West Ham Academy player, doesn't he? Like Freddie Potts. Like, you know, apparently his dad, Steve Potts, also played for West Ham. 400 games for West Ham, actually, now looking at his Wikipedia page. I can't remember Steve Potts. He seems to be a proper football man from the 90s, Ryan. Do you remember him?
Yeah, Steve Morley and Slaven Bilic and all those lads,
there we go.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Freddie Potts looked the real deal in this game, and Lucas Paqueta. Do you know the comparison I was making in my head, Ryan, was Is he West Ham's Carlos Tevez this season, Paqueta? Just like a player who seems like a South American player who you watch them for generally a bad team fighting relegation, and you're sort of like, why are you there? Why are you at this team? But maybe he's going to do a Tevez and save them from relegation this season. He was very good.
Technically, Carlos Tevez was West Ham's Carlos Tevez, if we're going to be technical about it, Graham. But yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, very good.
I meant the new Carlos Tevez then.
Yeah,
you get what I mean.
I'll give you that. Yeah, and Freddie Potts. If there was ever a character in a Guy Ritchie movie, he was called Freddie Potts.
Yeah.
All right, Freddie.
It's a great name.
Yeah, very good indeed. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go around the continent, Spain, Italy, and much more. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the weekend review. Let's go to the Liga, where Real Madrid had a nice, comfortable 4-0 win over Valencia. Of course, it was Kylian Mbappe with a brace in this one. Our Lord and Saviour, Jude Bellingham, with a goal. And Alvaro Carreras also getting on the score sheet. Graham, there's some angles of Carreras' goal in this one where you sort of get behind him. It's a diagonal shot into the top corner. It seems to be hit like a tracer bullet, like rifled into the top corner. It is a thing of beauty. I love a hard, straight hit shot like that across goal. Very pleasing. Yeah,
real Roberto Carlos vibes, particularly with it being for Real Madrid. Not that I'm building him up to that level. But he's actually been very impressive for Real Madrid since he's come in this season. Worth recapping, 0 league minutes for Manchester United in his career there when he was known as Alvaro Fernandez. He rebranded after leaving Manchester United. That's how badly he wanted to get the stink off. But yeah, he's been good, and that was a cracker of a goal.
Wow, very good indeed. Vinny Jr. missing a penalty in that one as well. Barcelona 3, Elche 1, Lamine Yamal, Ferran Torres, and Mr. Marcus Rashford on the score sheet for Barcelona. Rashford with that nice striking off the crossbar, which was aesthetically pleasing as well. Barca moving within 5 points of Real Madrid with that one. Nice comeback after the Clasico defeat at the hands of Real Madrid. And Lamine Yamal's first league goal since August. That one took me by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, Lamine Yamal is this was always going to happen. We've seen it before. You build up someone to such a level and then they get torn down. I wouldn't say he's being torn down, but he has faced questions over the last couple of months for the first time in his Barcelona career. Not so much over his productivity, but over his work ethic, I think, has been the question mark there. For Barcelona in this game as a whole, I wouldn't say they got away with one here, but they didn't feel safe in this game until about, I don't know, like 5-10 minutes from the end when Elche finally fizzled out. And Elche in this game were impressive. They did a good job of playing through the Barca press, which was pretty loose in this game, and that has been a recent theme that's surely concerning to Hansi Flick. I thought Barca were pretty brittle out of possession in this game, not for the first time in the last couple of months, but obviously Barcelona just have better attacking players to get the job done. Really nice goal by Marcus Rashford to make it 3-1, where he actually, I thought he'd gone the wrong way. When he was inside the box, he has the choice of going left or right. Right is the shorter route to go. He goes left, he goes the long way round. But what he does then, and obviously the angle is tighter at that point, but then he lifts it over the goalkeeper with a finish off the underside of the bar, which always makes it look nicer. He's been really productive these last few weeks. I think that's 13 goal contributions in 14 games for Barcelona. The real turning point seemed to be when I had a go at him after that game against Newcastle in the Champions League, where I thought he'd been quite sluggish to start the season. Since then, absolutely electric, so you're welcome for that, Marcus. But in general, Barca do seem to have gone a little bit flat in the last few games. They do have some injuries, so that is a factor. But yeah, it feels like just in terms of their intensity and energy, there's been a bit of a drop-off after last season, and for them that makes a big difference because that's like their whole thing. That's what made them so good last year.
Atletico Madrid with a 3-0 win over Sevilla. They're unbeaten in 10 Liga matches now. Antoine Griezmann getting on the score sheet late in that one as well. Let's go to Italy, shall we? The big game of the weekend was Milan-Roma. Milan getting a statement 1-0 win in this one. Strina Pavlovic with the goal. Milan, they were impressive, Graham. They grew into the game, created lots of chances. This could have ended differently with Paulo Dybala if he'd converted the penalty, which he did not. But yeah, a very impressive win for Milan and keeping things very tight at the top of the Serie A standings.
Indeed, I don't have the standings in front of me, but I think there's like a 1 point between the top 4 teams, so we have the makings of a classic title race there, where it feels like nobody is really taking a grip of things. I thought this was a pretty entertaining game on the whole. It would be easy to look at the scoreline and maybe think this was similar to some of the big games we've had in Serie A this season, which have been a bit stodgy. I didn't think that at all about this game. There were loads of chances in this game. You look at the XG, I think Milan had like 3.5 and then Roma 2.5. So there were lots of chances. Obviously a safe penalty close to the end. There was a couple of shots off the line as well. I thought it was pretty open. I thought both teams wanted to play in quick transition. That made it really quite entertaining. Roma will regret that they didn't take anything from this game, because they certainly had the better of the first half in particular. Some really nice transition moments from them. I thought Wesley was a good outlet down the left. Cristante was making good runs forward from midfield. There was one chance he had fairly early on where I think it was it Dybala? If he'd played like just one pass over, they had an overload Roma in quick transition. It was 3 against 2, and he kind of takes the shot himself, and he just played it to his. If he just had more peripheral vision and played it to his right, it would have been a clear shot on goal. And the way that Roma played, it was kind of like a sort of false nine system, with Dybala usually the most advanced player. Evan Ferguson is out injured at the moment. Gasperini clearly doesn't fancy Jobbik much, only comes off the bench in this game. I think that might be where Roma fall short this season, is it feels like they don't have like the sharpest of cutting edge. They do have a good basis and foundation to the rest of that team. And Dybala, look, I love Paulo Dybala, he's still a great player, but as that number 9, he just doesn't have the pace anymore. So there are a couple times when he was played in over the top, and he just didn't have the speed or the legs to get away from the defender, and maybe a quicker player gets away and gets a shot away. So that was the shortcoming of Roma's game. For Milan, no Christian Pulisic. Obviously, he's still out injured, and I was reading that Milan and US Soccer have agreed that he won't be joining up with the national team for the November camp. Milan's still in a bit of a huff over what happened in October. And so it was interesting in this game that Milan and Roma sort of mirrored each other with similar setups, 2 split forwards rather than out-and-out striker. An out-and-out striker on both teams, and I thought Milan just made that work better, mainly because they had Rafael Leao, who did give them, I mentioned like how Dybala didn't have any straight line speed. Obviously Leao gives you that, and he gives Milan that ability to get up the field quickly. And even when there were moments when Milan fell out of this game, Leao would still carry the ball 20-30 yards, and that's what he did for the winning goal, right, when he puts it on a plate for Pavlovic. So I thought between the two teams it was fairly evenly matched, with the exception of Leao, who was the difference maker. And it was good to see him, I was going to say play with a smile. He always plays with a smile, even when he's playing poorly. But it's good to see him. He's a fun player, right, Rafael Leao? Yeah. So it's good to see him making a difference in like the biggest games again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he had a great game in this one. And you're quite right, looking at the standings, 1 point separating the top 4 teams. Napoli at the summit with 22, and then Inter, Milan and Roma all on 21. Napoli could have pulled further ahead, of course, this weekend, but they did not. They could have actually, they could have been all teams on 21 had Alvaro Morata not had his penalty saved for Como. 0-0 between Napoli and Como it was this weekend as well. And Luciano Spalletti at Juventus getting a 2-1 win at Cremonese. It took Juventus 85 seconds for them to break their duck, which is appropriate for Spalletti, famously owner of a duck.
Very good.
Thank you. Working on that one all weekend. Jamie Vardy getting another goal for Cremonese as well. He's still got the pace to get past those Serie A defences. So, yeah, Jamie Vardy, very good. I think that's his second one for Cremonese now. We get now to the goal of the weekend, in my opinion, Graham. I hope you have seen this one from Inter's 2-1 win at Verona. Step up, Peter Zielinski in the 16th minute, where it's Çalhanoğlu who floats in the corner, right? So I hope they worked a long time on the training ground on this. It's a diagonal ball floated to the edge of the box and a side foot volley into the top corner from Zielinski. That was, Graham, one of the goals of the season for me already. Absolutely delightful stuff. I just love that they had the temerity to pull it off.
Yeah, and it's not just... it would have been good enough if he'd kind of done if Zielinski had done do you remember the Scholes volley against Aston Villa all those years ago? And he kind of like hits it with his laces. But Zielinski hits it with his side foot on the volley. And yet somehow he passes it into the net, but it's a bullet into the back. Like, it's ridiculous. The technique on that is out of this world. I genuinely can't really recall many goals like it. So yeah, I think I'll remember this one for a while.
Yeah, and just the corner as well. It's one of those ones where I think on the Weekender, or a show last week, I was describing a Wimbledon player who used to be able to float the ball and it stayed in the air for an extra second or two. Alan Kimball, what a good memory, Graham. And it seemed like Çalhanoğlu, despite it being like, it looked like on first viewing, he'd hit it along the floor almost, like at a slow pace. But then he's perfectly darted it towards Zielinski as well. bravo. All parties involved in that goal. Very worthy it was. The other bit of news to report from Italy is Patrick Vieira said au revoir to Genoa. They are bottom of the league. So Patrick Vieira on to new pastures. There we go. One more league to look at, Graham. The Bundesliga. Guess who had a win this weekend? It was Bayern Munich. Surprise, surprise.
No.
Yeah, can you believe it? A comfortable win in a game where they might have been challenged. 3-0 win over Leverkusen.
A game where, sorry to jump in, I don't know if you were going to lead us here, Ryan. I only saw like the highlights of this game. But I believe Bayern swapped out their entire front three for this match and still won 3-0 against one of the teams that's supposedly one of their closest challengers. Yeah, feeling quite good about that discussion we had last week of whether they could win every game this season in the league.
Yeah, it seems that way, and they are feeling good about it too. As you mentioned, Harry Kane, Michael Olise, and Luis Diaz all rested in the first half because they got PSG coming up in the Champions League this week as well. That's 15 wins in all competitions now for Bayern Munich. They are doing very well. This ended Leverkusen's 37-game unbeaten streak on the road as well. So historical for Leverkusen for different reasons.
Wow.
As well. Yeah, they were
kind of amazed that survived the Ten Hag. I know he was only there for like 5 games, but that seems like it should have been enough for that to end.
Their streak of 37 unbeaten games on the road is the longest streak by any Bundesliga club. I guess Bayern Munich included. Wow. Impressive stuff.
Surprising.
There we go. All right, Graham. I think that pretty much wraps it up for the weekend review, but there'll be plenty more on Weekend Review Extra, including the old firm, maybe a bit of MLS, maybe a bit of me lamenting the FA Cup first round and a certain team who didn't win.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Also, Cristiano Ronaldo Jr. has been in action. Let's talk about that as well on Weekend Review Extra. But for now, Graham Ruthven, in the dynamic duo, thank you very much indeed for doing all of the talking and the analysing in this here episode.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey. Safe travels to Atlanta. Tell Ringo I said hi.
Will do. He doesn't. I won't, because he doesn't talk to fans or answer their mail or sign their autographs anymore, famously,
okay.
Unfortunately. But I will pass on your sentiments. And you know, I'm going to Atlanta, Graham. So you know what else I'm doing today, right? You know, it's there's a giant building with some whale sharks in it. Of course I'm going.
Are you really?
Yeah. Why wouldn't I? It's my birthday.
You are a parody of yourself, Ryan Bailey.
Yeah, maybe lunch at the Hard Rock Cafe if we get time. Wonderful stuff. Thank you very much, Graham. Thank you very much, listener, for joining us on this one. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.